It's UFC 115 pick time. Chuck versus Rich. I think everyone should know what I'm talking about when I say those two names. Spike card. We got Matt Hamill versus Matt Wyman, the moderately attractive one, versus Danzig. Taking Wyman by decision. I think his size and perceived wrestling advantage should allow him to be able to take down Danzig and control him. He's got a pretty good ground game. He's very durable. I don't see Danzig catching him in anything, and finishing him. If anyone finishes this fight, I think it's Wyman. I think he does have the power to do so, but I do believe Danzig might have the slight edge on the stand-up, and Wyman will take him down, being a guy who doesn't seem to fall into that exciting fight syndrome, and I like that. He wins exciting if he can. He wins boring if he has to. That's kind of how it works. And that's how it should be, I've always said. If you can win exciting, all the more power to you. But if you can't, don't do it. Tyson, Griffin, Evan, Dunham. Don't like the idea of fighters training together and then fighting each other. Especially when, I don't really think it's necessary. Like, if you're number 2 and 3 in the world and you're trying to get a title shot, like, that makes sense. Like, when they were talking about Jardine and Rashad somewhat possibly fighting, kind of made sense because they were working their way to a title shot. That being said, this fight doesn't have to happen. It's a good fight. Evan Dunham's a guy who I think has more future potential than Tyson Griffin. Griffin's got all the athletic tools, but doesn't seem to be getting all that much better. And also, he has that exciting fight idea in his head that he has to have one, and it sometimes lands him into trouble when he does that. I think Tyson's got the better wrestling, and I think he's got the better striking, though, at this point in their careers. I think that's trouble for Dunham. I think he goes to a decision. A reasonable fight. Now, if, Tyson goes overboard, tries to make this exciting fight, tries to get the scrambles going, Dunham can catch him in something. Dunham's got good subs. He's got good wrestling himself. He's got pretty good stand-up. So it's far from impossible, but if Tyson does this fight the way, he should, in the interest of winning, Tyson Griffin should take this fight. Carlos Condit, Rory MacDonald. Rory MacDonald, a very, very young fighter, very big prospect, very much like Evan Dunham, actually. His wrestling, however, I just feel isn't at the level to exploit the fact that Condit does have some suspect wrestling. I think on the ground, this could be a very interesting fight. I think on the feet, Condit can dictate the pace, can do what he wants to. I think Condit can also take down Markham. Sorry, I'm thinking Rory Markham. MacDonald. So I just got to feel that, despite the fact that Condit's, wandering around, not really with a camp, really uncomfortable on where he's training, I got to think that he can pull this one out and win. I mean, Rory MacDonald is not Jake Ellenberger. He's not Martin Kampmann, at least at this point. And he should be able to win this fight. Ben Rothwell, Gilbert the Hurricane Ivel. Gilbert Ivel, great striker, but that's all there is to him. He doesn't have any wrestling. He has no ground game. Ben Rothwell does have wrestling, does have a ground game. I think he takes him down. I think he stops him with strikes and a TKO. I mean, it's hard to TKO Ivel, but I see him just getting a dominant position and just landing unanswered strikes. If he decides to try and stand with Ivel, completely different fight. But you got to think that, the way Rothwell's camp at MFS has been, they really need to win, and they'll build a game plan to do that, and not, necessarily the exciting one. Paulo, Thiago, Martin Kampmann, two guys who are both really well-rounded, but really different. Thiago's always, his striking is overlooked. Kampmann's ground game is always overlooked. They're kind of polar opposites in this regard. Kampmann's a guy who's got a very technical striking, not a lot of power. Thiago's got a lot of power, not the greatest technical striking. Neither guy has particularly phenomenal wrestling. I think both can take each other down. I think on the ground, Thiago's got the advantage. I mean, he's just a fantastic grappler. Probably the best at 170 in the UFC. So I see him being able to win this fight by just catching Kampmann in something. I mean, people do like to make a big deal about Kampmann's ground game, But when it really shines through, it's people either overlooking it or people that don't really have the greatest ground game themselves. I mean, Carlos Condit caught him in a couple of things. I got to think Thiago's got to have the ability here, and I think he's got to be in the position where he's not going to overlook Kampmann's abilities on the ground, because he wins this fight, it could mean a title shot. Not that he's in any way the number 2 guy, but the number 2 guy has been for quite some time, Jon Fitch. Particularly if GSP takes out Koscheck again, I don't think we'll see Fitch GSP 2. The UFC doesn't want that. They find Jon Fitch to be a boring fighter, and a lot of the casual fan market and some of the hardcore fans also don't particularly enjoy watching Jon Fitch fight. That being said, he is the guy. Mirko Cro Cop, Pat Barry. Cro Cop saying all the right things, how everything's fixed. He's ready to come back. His knees are fixed. His game is ready to go. Gonna work at more leg kicks. Doesn't matter. We've heard this tune from Cro Cop before. We heard it after he lost to Gonzaga. We heard it after he lost to Congo. We heard it after the loss to Junior Dos Santos. You look at him and he doesn't want to be fighting anymore when he gets in the cage. Maybe when he's outside of the cage, he's really gung-ho, really ready, bring it on type of guy. But when that cage door closes, he seems to be almost afraid. And it's not good. And it's kind of painful to watch for, someone who is a big Cro Cop fan, and he just doesn't look remotely the same mentally. It's not physically that the problem is really there. It's not like a Chuck Liddell scenario or even a Nogueira scenario where they've just become kind of too old, but they definitely still have the spirit to be in there. Cro Cop just doesn't seem to. He seems to be kind of broken. Barry, I think, keeping that in mind, Barry's got the better striking at this point. Barry's got devastating leg kicks. He's got great power. He can mix it up with both the hands and the feet. He has, apparently rumors are from his camp that he's getting much better at his grappling and he's getting much better at his takedowns. Cro Cop's takedown defense has not looked like it anywhere remotely used to. I mean, you look at the fight with Junior Dos Santos, I think it just shows what I mean. Despite the fact that people love to say Junior Dos Santos is the next big thing, you look at his striking, it's not exactly a very solid technical game, but he was able to pretty much box up Cro Cop. And that's just a bad sign. I see Barry winning this either by TKO or by decision. I'm going to go with a decision because I think, Cro Cop will feel he has something to prove by at least lasting. Chuck Liddell, Rich Franklin. Main event. Of course, this was supposed to be Chuck Tito. I don't mind this fight, although I've said it before that I think it's stupid they kicked Chuck off or Tito off the Ultimate Fighter to make room for Rich, because I will boldly predict that really is going to be one episode that Rich is there will not build this fight in any way, because Rich will, there's no beef to my knowledge, and the trash talk won't be there. That being said, the fight, it's somewhat interesting. It's kind of a last hurrah for Chuck, except for maybe if they do the Tito fight again. I don't really see how he can win this fight. I mean, he could try and take him down and hold him down. Chuck's wrestling very underrated. That being said, I don't feel he can do that at this point in time. Dan Henderson had a hard time holding down Rich Franklin, and he is a better wrestler than Chuck. On the feet, Chuck is just too slow and doesn't seem to really even have the power he used to knock people out while going backwards. His counter strike, he's always actually had issues facing actual strikers. You look at his fights with Alistair Overeem, with Guy Mesger, Rampage Jackson to a lesser extent. They gave him all kinds of problems. Rampage won, but it was more than just Chuck's inability to deal with strikers. Even Vitor Belfort way back when Chuck was, in his heyday, gave him some problems. And that makes me think Rich can do it. Rich has got good leg kicks. Rich has got a very good ground game. Rich has got good boxing. He's pretty strong. He's kind of entering that twilight years too, though, so we'll see if Father Time kind of catches up to him. I kind of felt it almost did against Vitor Belfort, just because he did not look good at all. He hasn't looked good since really '08 when he fought Matt Hamill. I mean, I guess he looked good in both the Vanderlei Silva and Dan Harrison fights, but he didn't look like that guy who, for the longest time ruled the middleweight division. So that's all I have to say about that. So it's an okay card when you look at how the fights match up, but it's a pretty name-free card. But we'll still watch.